Hey everyone, welcome back. We're going to continue on our study of Chapter 2 by learning about how to begin constructing a SQL query. This is on page 38 of your textbook, and we're going to begin by working with what we call the Select From Where SQL framework. SQL, as we have discussed earlier, is the language that we use to talk to databases, to get data from databases, put data into databases, change data, and so on. What we're going to begin working with is the query that we use to extract data from a database. So the data is already there, we just want to get at it. So what we use for that is a SQL select from where query. And I'll express what this means. The query begins with the word select, and then you follow that by the list of fields that you want to pull from the database. It's not actually expressed in this particular way. I'm just putting this as an explanation of what the framework is. So select what fields, and then from, and this is where we say what tables we want to pull the data from. And then we follow that by where, which is what conditions. For example, if you wanted to pull the payroll data for a specific employee, you wouldn't necessarily pull all of the payroll, because then if you're working at a company with hundreds of employees, years worth of data, you would have to cull through all that by hand just to get the specific bits of information that you were looking for. But you can use the where clause to zone in on specific data that you're after and exclude everything else, even if it's there in the table. So a better way to tell you what the where clause does is to say which data, as opposed to getting everything that would be there. So to give you an example, we're going to look at our Cape Cod database again, and we're not working with the actual data at this point. This is more of a broad overview. We're going to begin working with the data later on in this chapter, a couple modules down the road. So let's say I want to get the list of orders that have been completed in this store. So I want the order numbers in my retail orders, because that should tell me I've completed these orders, here they are. So select, and this is where it says what fields I want, right? Well, I want the order number. That's specifically what I've said. I want order number from my retail orders. So that's what I'll list here, order number. If I wanted the store number it came from too, I would just do a comma and then a store number. And I would get both of these items in my results. And then from, and that's where I list what table the data comes from, and that's going to be my retail order table. And then my where, if I wanted to specify I want to get the orders that have come out of a certain store. Like if I was a corporate guy and I wanted to close the stores that aren't producing, by looking at how many orders they've completed, I might be interested in this sort of information. So I could say where store number is 1. I want to see which orders have come from store number 1. And we'll get more into how we do this later. This is a complete query. You can run this against this database and it will produce results as long as the store exists. Now you can leave the where clause off. Let's say you want to see everything. You can drop this, and this is a complete query too, but it will show you everything that's in the retail order table because we didn't use the where clause to exclude anything. So let's have another look. If I wanted to get the list of items in my SKU data, I could do select SKU and SKU description, again using a comma to separate them, from SKU data. That's the name of my table, that's where it comes from. So I want these fields from this table. And when I run it, it should give me what I'm after. And we'll go over this later. Now let's say I wanted to get this SKU for a specific item, or for a specific buyer, for example. We'll stick with this specific item. So I want to get the SKU for my half dome tent. I would use a where clause for this. Where SKU description is equal to half dome tent. And you may have noticed the single apostrophe I used here. We'll go into that later. But this is how we use SQL select from where. In the next module, we're going to begin getting our hands dirty in Access and actually begin working with this data running these queries. So stay tuned, and we'll see you there.